All right. Fabulous. Perfect. All right, here we are. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we are here to talk about block play. If you have not joined us before, we want to just take a quick moment to introduce ourselves. I am Kaylee Pollitt. I am one half of our kindergarten consulting team.
And I am Kathleen Ruff, the other half of the kindergarten programming consultant team.
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of today, we just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge that we are on this beautiful land of Treaty 6, and we want to share this lovely little video with you guys. We hope that the video works and that the sound works. If it does not, please just give us a thumbs up or a nod and we'll try and fix this. But fingers crossed, let's give it a test.
We're gathered today on Treaty 6 land, Amiskwatsy Wet'suwet'en. The river is Kasaskawani Seepy. This means a waterway flowing swiftly. Land of the Nehio, homeland of the Métis, land of the Dene and the Anishinaabe. Also the Nakota and the Niitsitapi. We thank all of those who cared for Aski. Now people from all over live together on this land. Under a treaty kinship, we should all understand. I hope that you are able to join us for a story time soon where you might catch this rhyme.
And again, we just want to remind you guys that the slides will be posted on our SharePoint. And so everything is accessible to you. If you liked that video and you want to share that with your students, it is absolutely supported by Learning Services, Indigenous Learning Services. So go right ahead. We just want to take a moment to center ourselves, and we will thank God for this day. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this day's professional development. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we learn today for the good of our students and for the service of humanity. We ask this in your name. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, today's plan, we are going to be talking a lot about blocks. First, we're going to begin with our block thoughts. We're going to dive a little bit into the history of block and the stages of blocks play. As you guys begin to think about that, or as we begin to talk about those things, we encourage you guys to reflect on where some of your students might be at in the class and things that you notice in your own class about those stages of block play that they're perhaps moving through, or the differences of where they started and where they're at this time of year. We're going to talk about space, organization, and accessories in the classroom, curricular examples we will be tying all of our photos to, and then we're going to touch on some literature that you can incorporate into your classroom and those important resources as well. Success criteria, again, this is connected to the TQS. So today we will be collaborating with one another to build personal and collective professional capacity about our block play. We will seek and critically review and apply educational research to improve our practice. We are planning and designing learning activities that foster student understanding between activity and the learning outcomes. There we go. Whoops, we jumped too far ahead. Okay, this is where we would like your guys' input. So feel free to turn on your mics, turn on your cameras, whatever you would like, or if you're just more comfortable typing in the chat box, Kathleen is moderating our chat right now as we speak, but we want to know what some of your thoughts are on block play in your classroom. Anything at all goes. So if you are noticing things in your classroom, or if you've thought a certain way about blocks, or even just want to share what your kids are loving in the block center right now, now is the moment to do so.
Yeah, so just type it in the chat or turn your mic on. And we wrote at the bottom, seriously, any thought at all about block play. There is no wrong answer. I don't know, Kaylee, how do you feel about block play when you were in the classroom? For me, it was always an area that I had set up, and the kiddos just love going to blocks.
Absolutely. I noticed often too that there were certain kids that always wanted to go to the block center. Some kids too who just always wanted to build the exact same thing, which again is totally fine. But those are some of the observations that I noticed in my class.
Okay, there's nothing in the
Anybody
chat
else?
yet, guys.
Oh,
Let's.
I can share here.
Lisa.
Okay, Lisa, always the one that volunteers first. Thanks, Lisa.
Woo woo. I noticed that some kiddos like to build towers and want to keep them. And then there's those kiddos that want to build towers to crash. You know, it's neat to see and how that kind of correlates into their development, that finished product.
Yes.
Or yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Lisa. Those are definitely some good observations, and we are going to address what do we do when we have block play happening in the classroom and we cannot just stick it in a portfolio, like a traditional paper portfolio. What are some things that Kaylee and I have done in the classroom in order to save those creations and what that would look like? So we're definitely going to address that. Thanks. Amy, you've got your camera on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very similar. I have a lot of kiddos that like to keep what they've made or make it to keep it. But I also, my block center is not my popular center. So there's some days where the block center remains empty. But when it is there, it's always full. There's always the max amount of students I allow at that center at that time. So it's either a great hit or a great miss. And I would love to try to make it popular all the time with any ideas you guys have.
Awesome. That's a really also a really good observation, Amy. We are going to talk about some of the things that we can add to our block center if it is popular or if it's not as popular, just to kind of think some things through. I know when Kaylee and I were going through and even doing the presentation, we even had a couple aha moments saying like, man, I wish I would have thought of that in my classroom so that I could have added it, or yeah, I definitely did that and it was a success, or I tried that and it was a fail, all while acknowledging that we have a different group of students each time. So that's great. Okay, thank you for sharing those thoughts, Lisa and Amy. These were some of the things that we thought of as well about how our block area gets super loud. Kiddos who take the blocks and bring them everywhere in the classroom, and then you find them like a little treasure hunt. About how some children really do like to spend extended periods of time at the block play, and how as teachers that might make us feel uncomfortable and whether or not that's okay. And also about having blocks out in the classroom and nothing ever changes about them. So for some teachers, it's a bit of a goal to change it up, and we're going to talk about some of those materials today.
It's interesting too, from year to year, when we reflect on our students and who we have in the classroom. Some years the block center was a huge hit, and other years it's interesting that kind of fades out. So again, touching on what Kathleen said, today the point of being here is figuring out how we can make this enticing and incorporate block play in meaningful ways in our classroom that really gets children engaged in that.
All right, so a little bit of the history that we learned about block play is that, did you know that in 1915, Caroline Pratt was the person responsible for these unit blocks? Lots of us have sets of these that are incomplete, but if you have any of those stickers or any of those ones that look like a quarter of a circle, those are the unit blocks that Caroline Pratt invented. And essentially they are mathematically 1 to 2 to 4 ratio, where the kids can like decompose and then compose those blocks based on a whole unit. Not only is it mathematically challenging for them, they use their imagination and their creativity in order to make vast creations in the classroom with them. Montessori blocks, you will see traditionally and historically, those are the ones that are a little bit more used in a prescribed way, and they only have one right way to play with them. You'll see lots of them in like the, how do we say it in English? Like the crescending, like a I don't know.
Oh, when they go from like small to large, right?
Amy, help me out in the chat. Yeah, like a increasing size.
Yeah.
And we've put a photo here so that you guys can see that, how it's sorted into color, and those pink blocks that you see there are going from biggest to smallest. And those are really those classic historical Montessori wooden toy way that we use blocks. Sometimes we use blocks this way in the classroom, sometimes we don't. Lots of us have a lot of pieces from all of these sets that we all kind of put together, and we're going to look at some of the organization pieces of that as well. The stages of block play. All right, so we emailed all the participants and we asked you to kind of think about where you feel your students fall, your children fall in these stages of block play. So while we're going through them and talking about a few examples, think about where your group is this year, and think about if you've had groups that have been different or the same as this year. So stage 1 is really that pre-building, right? That's like babies, how they bang blocks together, they taste them, fill and dump, carry, and they're learning about the weight and the property of those blocks. Pretty sure that not a lot of us have kiddos that are still tasting blocks at this point. However, there might still be a few of those children who are doing those pre-building skills. So when we see something like that happening in the classroom, kind of like when we were talking about at the summer summit, we saw climbing into the sensory bin, those types of ways that they're exploring those materials. That's really the pre-building skills. Okay.
And Lisa, I think of you too when you talked about the children in your class that like to go there, and yes, they do maybe like to construct, but they really like to deconstruct. And so that would be those preliminary phases where they're dealing with that cause and effect. They're cause and effect of something and then crashing it down.
Yeah. And that proprioception as well,
Absolutely.
right? Rather than giving themselves a high five, they want to achieve it by pushing those blocks down as well. And they also might be showing stage 2, towers and rows. They're building horizontal or vertical rows. They're doing it with lots of repetition, placing them side by side, and then adding those columns or adding those rows together. And this is typical by age 3. I have a son, he's 2.5. This is exactly where he's at. He is lining up everything that he can when it comes to blocks and cars. So he's at the typical stage for that. Bridging is when they're going to take 2 of those blocks and then they're going to place another block on top to kind of make that like triangle looking situation. And then enclosures is what the photo over here is demonstrating, where children start to understand that they can enclose a space and they can start defining what is indoor and what is outdoor. So in this photo, you can see that they're probably constructing something like a typical garage. Those 2 blue cars that are outside are like parked on the driveway pad or in a carport. And then the other section is like the inside of the house or the building that they're building there. Stage 5 is when they're recognizing a little bit more about symmetry and those decorative patterns. And stage 6 is where they're actually naming those structures and having an intent for them to be able to build. And they take all of those skills from stages 1 to 5 and they incorporate those dramatic play elements. So they might be adding puppets or animals or things like that to whatever they're building. Stage 7, they are reproducing buildings like they might have seen already, and they're also including exterior landmarks. So not only are they building their house, maybe they're building their neighbor's house that's next to them, they're building a little street, they're building a sidewalk, they're building maybe the park around their school, those types of things. So most of our kindergarten children, since they have to incorporate all those stages 1 to 5 by stage 6, are kind of exploring stage 5, stage 6, stage 7. But if you just want to take a moment and type a number in the chat of what stage you think your specific group is at this moment in time in your classroom. And you don't have to add anything else. You can just add a number of where you have observed where your children are. Patterns and symmetry is kind of fun because I know mandalas made like a big impact in the classroom, right? When we got into mindfulness and exploring those types of things. So I know that children were able in my classroom to kind of look at mandalas and then use blocks to kind of represent that symmetry and repetition. Thank you, Amy. She's got a student at 1. Sheila's are more at 5. Yeah, so 5, 6, 7 is more of the typical kindergarten range, but acknowledging that most of our or all of our students should be showing any of these stages at any time.
And I like that in this chat, we're seeing some people that are sharing a range. Yeah. So it is very possible that within our classroom, we do experience a range of development in a range of stages that these children might be at. 6 and 7, a few still at 1 and 2, 5 through 7. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. Space, we've got a few photos here, just to show you how some teachers have their rooms set up. I think Charla popped in. This is actually Charla's wonderful classroom. And you can see that she has it grouped with her noisy center. People have their big carpet, right? A lot of us have restrictions as far as space goes, and we don't have huge spaces. So although some literature that you explore might say that it would be amazing to have a dedicated, I think 20 by 20 area is what some of the literature said that we will, butt it up against our large carpet. But this is easier for us to do because then their structures can become more elaborate. If we have a smaller space, then it doesn't allow them to extend that creativity. And it's also a fairly stable surface. We need that mix between comfortable enough for them to play, so like a rug, but stable enough that those creations can actually have some height and some length to them. One of the literature pieces that we were reading said that you could also use a piece of wood, like a flat piece of wood that you could put on your carpet if that was an issue for you, or if your carpet was too plush. Conflict also gets reduced when you have enough space as well, and then it prevents that accidental destruction, even though, like we were talking about before, sometimes that destruction isn't so accidental. And then we know that we can't always do the semi-enclosed area situation, but if you have a big room and you're able to get that large space and with a semi-enclosed area, that's the ideal situation for block play. A little organization for you. We love when blocks can be stored on open shelves. That way they don't have to open cupboards or anything. They have a nice, comfortable place to work, a nice soft floor, while it's still stable enough to build on. Labeled and organized by type is also a great way to make the space inviting for them. If we just throw all the blocks in there, it just kind of looks disorganized and it doesn't really want to make the children play there. Is it a pain to clean up? Yes. Do we practice with them? Also, yes. Takes a lot of time to build that routine. The bottom photo actually is from another school where they had those super long pieces of, it was like the pool noodle that was cut in half, if you all know what I'm talking about, so that you could roll things down it. The pieces were so long and we didn't know where to put them because all of the shelving was not long enough. So the bottom of that sensory bin actually was long enough for them to store those extremely long pieces. And then next to it, you'll see a box with all those other large pieces as well that fit into it. And this, although it's just cut off in the photo, is butted up against a large carpet so that the children can build. So talking about pairing it with like a noisy area as well, the sensory bin is not a quiet spot. So this was sensory plus storage plus the busyness of building at a big carpet next to it. Also, please feel free to throw them in the chat. A lot of information and we have it here. So if you feel like you like something or you have a question, feel free to throw it in there. Okay, lots of accessories. So we know that a concern from everybody is, well, the blocks just kind of stay the same way all the time. What can I do to jazz it up? Some things that you could do is add some people, add some loose parts like we did from our last PD, adding all of those gems, all of those, what are those, corks, shells, things like that, having them in a basket available at the block area like you see in this photo here, along with some signs. You can see that the teacher in this classroom has cued the children to either build a teepee or a castle or even hay, bales of hay, as well as like some little furniture and things like that can really expand what you want them to do. You don't have to put all those things out at once either. So you can either choose to just maybe do the animals, and definitely if you put out some animals, they're going to build a zoo for sure, for sure. So rotating those items out on a regular basis is helpful, and you don't have to have too many of them at once.
It helps to keep those items novel and exciting and new too, which is super great. When kids walk into the room, they're always looking for what's new, what's exciting. And so by rotating those items slowly over time, every single day, or introduce it. And when you see that children are kind of done with it, or they've explored enough with it, then perhaps the next to remove those and reintroduce something.
Yeah, this was what was this? A summer
Summer
summit
Summit.
photo. Yeah. So this is just an example of those people with some loose parts. Those are just pieces of foam that were from the reuse center, those black pieces, to kind of make, they look like little mini weightlifters, but in all honesty, it was to like to build a playground, because the text, the mentor text is rulers of the playground and some blocks, and then defining the space. You can see some gray paper, some green paper, in order for the children to be able to center what they're playing with on a certain space. You could do this on a table, you could do this on the floor, you could do this at a light table. It's up to you. So that was just a nice example of some accessories.
Now, when we think about items that you may want to add or introduce to your center, these are some photos that can help you out. So tape measures, bringing in that measurement piece is fantastic. You can challenge children to build to a certain height, or you can explore which tower is taller, which tower might be shorter. You can explore the width of different things. Even when we're talking about rolling items down a ramp, you can see how far that item rolled to. So a tape measure can be used in so many different ways in the building blocks, and just introducing that too. It's very fun to just watch the kids and observe how they're actually interacting with it. What we intended them to interact with in a certain way may not be how they do it, and how they extend their learning may go far beyond what we ever thought. Blueprints are something really great to introduce. There's some really great literature too that we'll show you later on that can incorporate that as well. But even printing off blueprints or throwing them up on your smartboard, if you have your building block center right at your large carpet, adding some blueprints to the smartboard, or having children investigate what it is they might want to build today, and then inquiring about that together and looking that up on your smartboard and displaying that there throughout center time can be a fantastic way to get them to interact with blueprints. Tables, so different levels of tables, different ways that you can introduce block building. So we've talked a lot about working at various heights within the classroom, whether that's in literacy, numeracy, science, any type of discovery or investigation within the classroom. But introducing a table, a low line, or a table that's a little bit higher can again just revamp your space and make it more exciting for children to come and interact in a new and novel way. Lamps, just adding that soft lighting again is so important. One thing that we would highly recommend people introduce in their center, paper and writing utensils. So paper, pencils on a clipboard, whatever that is. If you have a little box of crayons, of pencils right beside, have those children build those items. And then that's when you can come in and talk to them and say, what did you build? Tell me about it. Now, do you think that we can draw it? Can we document it? Sometimes in my classroom too, we were lucky that we had a printer not too far away from our classroom. So I would go and snap a picture of their final product. I would throw that into a Word and I would hit print onto the printer with somebody, they would grab it. And then half of the page was what they actually made in the classroom. It was that black and white picture of whatever their creation was. And then underneath that was an opportunity for them to write, or opportunity for them to engage in that observational drawing. And then those can be displayed to enhance your space, but then to inspire other students. Talked about too between the two of us is, what do you do when kids don't want to clean up their space? Well, you can take pictures and you can display them, or you can have them draw and create their plan to talk about what they want to build next time or how they want to extend it. So by documenting that and leaving it on the clipboard in the class, they can come back to that exact space next time and know where they want to start off. Even if the tower or the creation of whatever it is removed, they have a starting point again. Post-it notes, again, so important. And then levels are really interesting as well. Just another tool that children may not be introduced to before. They may not even know what a level is. So putting that in and letting them discover, and then talking about that with them. What do you think this means when we tilt it to one side or tilt it to the other? All the language that's built up behind that can be really great.
Yeah, we talked also about emailing the photo to ourselves. You know, another time where we are pressed for time, they don't want to clean the blocks up, they want to keep their creation, we don't have time to throw it in a printer. Take a picture, email it to yourself, and then you can forward it on to the parents. And that's always a super preserve what they've made. You can also take a quick picture right in Google Docs or right in slides if you have some portfolios going. That is just the best and quickest way to kind of acknowledge their creation and also be able to send it home without totally completely forgetting that you said that you were going to do it.
And a great way to honor the child as well. Honor what they built, make it feel special, talk to them about it, and encourage their parents to talk to them about it too.
Yeah. If we're sending art home with their name on it, creations that we cannot print need to be honored in the same way. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. This next slide that you will see teeny tiny text, but we encourage you guys to visit this site after. So when you click on this link, it will lead you to a document. I believe it's on page 4 of this document that you will be able to find this. And it's actually interactive that you can go through and you can read this stuff and then you can click. It's a checklist for you guys to reflect on your classroom practice and your block space and your block building. So it talks about the creativity, it talks about critical thinking, collaboration, the communication that's happening within the class. Even as I was going through this, I thought about things again. It was a great reflective moment for both Kathleen and I to think, oh man, it would have been great to have introduced that in the classroom, or I never thought about this a certain way, or whatever it may be. And so this is just a great reflective piece. If you're ever stuck thinking, oh, kids really just aren't engaging in the way that you had hoped, or they're not visiting the center as frequently as you would like them to, go back to this and reflect on it and see if there's any pieces that perhaps you could incorporate, or there's any behaviors that you're noticing that this might highlight that leads you to set up the center in a different way or create new spaces that are inviting and produce a different purpose for the children. So again, this is something that we would highly recommend that you guys take a look through on your own time. Curriculum now. So we are talking about math to begin with. Again, following a lot of the themes of our other PDs, we want to give you guys a lot of photos because we hope that that inspires you, or that provides an opportunity for you guys to click back on these slides and look about what you have available in your own classroom. See what materials you might have and how you might want to change or adapt things in a different way to introduce these in your classroom. So the first one we have here is number sense. Number sense, again, in block building, the possibilities are endless. You can see on the top of this shelf here, you have the numbers there. You can dice, you can incorporate wooden letters or numbers, or laminated letters or numbers. Again, like we talked about with measurement, you can bring in tape measures for the children to measure with. There are so many endless possibilities to further develop a child's number sense in the block center. And so we hope that this just sparks a thought about not only what you're already doing, but maybe how you want to take that a little bit further. If children are just building their towers, those numbers, maybe we can introduce tape measures, or you want to put numbers on the side of your shelf so that children can put their tower there and compare the heights. Or again, like we talked about, if they're rolling cars down a ramp or marbles down a ramp, put that tape measure out there, or put those numbers on the carpet to see how far those materials may roll.
And we've been learning all year, Kaylee, that a center is linked to a learning outcome.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if they're just doing that, that's what they're doing.
We're hitting the curriculum
That's right
there. Again, more curriculum, geometric shapes. So within our curriculum, children are investigating shapes, whether that's 2D shapes or 3D shapes. Again, you will see in this photo on the top left, there are clipboards to invite children to draw. They may draw after the fact, or they may create something on paper and then bring their paper to the block center. So there's that transfer of knowledge from a 2D shape to a 3-dimensional shape. So there endless possibilities with the block. We instantly think about when we're block building, well, of course, they're investigating shapes. Check, we've got that done. But again, there's just so much more in-depth learning that we can do within the block center to support this development. Quantity. So children interpret compositions of quantity within 10. Some of you may notice that the photo in the top left was something that was displayed when we had our numeracy PD. So this is just a quick way that you could introduce quantity within your class, number sense within your class. You could do this with a piece of paper on the ground for sure. You could also do chalk. You could also do tape. I have taped tape onto my card carpet before, and then put numbers within the carpet on that tape, because of course you don't want to draw on the floor or on the carpet. So if you think that you're limited just because you have a carpet, that's false. There's endless possibilities for that as well. So bringing a low-lying table in, you can absolutely do that. If you want to transfer the blocks again to a tabletop center, you can most certainly do that. And then you will see again the tape measures there. We have small blocks, small little manipulatives. Introducing those wooden numbers into your block building center will just allow children to engage with numbers and develop that number sense or quantity in a very meaningful way.
And Kaylee, do you think that some of our participants today are going to be able to recreate this photo on the top left?
I sure hope
I think
so.
some people are going to be.
And the last one we have here is that spatial awareness through building, through direct comparison. They may be comparing their building to another peer's building. One tower might be shorter, the other tower might be taller. They may be trying to fit blocks inside other blocks and exploring that way. Within the picture centered on the page, children were trying to figure out ways to put that light rope, or so again, developing that spatial awareness in very different but meaningful ways, hiding animals in every nook and cranny of a block, or putting cars in different spaces. We not think that that is purposeful or intentional, but it absolutely is, and that is directly tied to our curriculum.
All right. Who's excited for the new science curriculum that we're all going to be doing come September? Woo woo, we are. So these centers are tied to, you can see the new learning outcomes. So if these are brand new to you, don't worry. We've got until September to start thinking about it, but these are some ideas that you could start thinking about as far as block play goes with science. So as far as learning the properties of objects go, this is a good idea to look at the grade 1 curriculum to see how it's going to advance forward. These are all about the properties such as things like stability and balance, ramps, pathways. You can see here children creating arches, balancing items on top, what's going to stay, what's not going to stay. So these are a few pictures from Kaylee's classroom with some very, very elaborate creations. Here's another example with force and motion and cause and effect, both indoor and outdoor. Children are rolling, is it cars?
Yep.
Doing cars? Yeah.
Yep.
Cars right down the ramp, and you can see that they have added even some arches at the end. That really ups the difficulty, hey?
It certainly does. Again, that spatial awareness too of, can the cars fit through, or can the penguins slide down the ramp into the ice, or whatever it might be.
And what object is going to fit down that pipe? So what kind of properties of objects are those going to be? Again, properties of materials of objects are they going to use in order to build certain things? Here, a teacher in a French immersion program has asked if they were able to build a haunted house, and she has provided them with stable enough materials that they would be able to build haunted houses that they had seen in literature. And then actually on the other side of this, you would see that number sense block play area that was set up with the 5 little pumpkins. So as children gain experience in building all kinds of structures, they learn what can or cannot be done with different materials. That's the whole purpose of being able to explore, and basically the essence of kindergarten, and allowing them to explore that on their own time during center time, as well as with teacher-directed instruction. Creating and representing. You know we love our small world play around here, and you know that we love recreating stories, making our own stories. The tiny photo in this slide is also from the Summer Summit with some of the resources that were given, and children can retell a story here. They can make up their own story, and in the coming newsletter for June, you're going to see some examples of this too. Some teachers have been doing a wonderful job with this as well. Blocks can really anchor it here, you can see, and then there's some things that are added to enhance it. So the Tegu blocks for the ice world are there, but then the materials that are reused, like the what's that, the poppy, you know, the stuff that you get when you get the mail, when you get an Amazon package.
Oh,
bubble pop, bubble
yeah,
wrap.
bubble
There
wrap.
we go. I got it. Two brains. Bubble wrap really enhances it. In the top left corner, the small world play items enhance it. You've got the trees and everything. And then obviously on the right, they're doing something as far as transportation goes, building a city and lots of ramps. So creating and representing could be across curricular outcome as far as science goes and as well as your language arts programs go. Oh, what a segue, literacy.
Woo. Again, when we talk about small world play, what a perfect opportunity to further develop that oral language. Children produce more oral language and exhibit greater diversity in vocabulary in the block center than in the dramatic play area or themed based area.
Whoa.
Interestingly enough, as we were
Whoa.
doing some research and Kathleen read that, we both took a little bit of time to riff on that. I may not have actually thought of that at first, but I can certainly see when we look at all of these photos and the beautiful things that are happening in classrooms, what authentic opportunities to further develop that oral language than the block center.
And I think you could argue more that like, as we mix those materials, maybe that's what it
Absolutely.
lends itself to more vocabulary as
Yeah.
opposed to like a theme-based dramatic play area, which is
Totally.
good, but
Yeah.
maybe this is just like a little bit better.
Certainly.
Mhm. Oh, we love this one.
Visual discrimination. I feel like so many people have done this in their class, and I'm hoping that you're looking at these photos going, aha, yes, I've done this. Or maybe, but I extend it differently. So again, when we talk about different surfaces, yeah, you can absolutely do this on the tabletop. You can absolutely do this on the floor. Have you ever thought about doing it so against the wall? So in the right hand corner, this picture that you will see, there's a concrete wall, and tape was used to create different types of shapes. And then children were given different blocks and they were matching the shapes that they saw on the wall to the shapes that they had, the 3D shapes that they had accessible to them within the classroom.
That's the visual discrimination.
Oh,
Matching the shape
100%.
to the shape.
Absolutely. So this is just another way to further extend that in a different, new, novel, exciting way within the classroom.
So fun. Love it.
Practice reading and writing. When literacy, multiple classroom, it's staple in Kathleen's, I'm sure it's
Yeah.
staple in so many people's, because you can use it in so many different ways, which is just so fantastic. But what better way to use them than practicing reading and writing and drawing skills? So when literacy materials such as stickers, papers, writing tools, books, pictures, posters, rulers, and sign making materials were added to the block area, literacy activities dramatically increased. Of course they did.
And if you have a group where they can save their structure and they're not going to touch it, and you have a nice afternoon class that's not going to come in and touch the morning classes, or vice versa, they can use those writing materials to make little signs. They don't touch. They could keep it on the clipboard and lean it up against it, or they could fold a piece of paper and put it next to their creation.
Yeah.
That is another way for them to be able to keep adding on to what they can do. We fully acknowledge that is not for every group. You might
No.
need that to be successful, but if you're looking for a way to really save that creation, use those writing materials so that the children can make their own little save me sign.
Absolutely. This photo here that you will see was taken 2 years ago in one of my classrooms, and it worked. It's not going to work for everybody or every single grade every year or every single class every year. However, the interesting thing about these two groups is they built creations. The morning class built creations for the afternoon class. The afternoon class then read the letters, saw the photos and the pictures, and they added to the building that the morning class did. So they added that. We left it up for the evening, and then the morning kids got to come back. So this was just one moment in time, but they actually ended up, we extended our block area pretty far within the classroom. This is when it started off pretty small, but we had some children who were just exceptionally interested in building that year. So we doubled our space, and we had kids building towers and building bridges. This led into a whole bridge inquiry, but it was actually really fascinating and so exciting for the children to come in each day to figure out what the other class added. So it increased it would increase the writing and reading in authentic ways, because it was their job to carry on their messages to the morning or the afternoon classes. And it was just so exciting. So again, something that when we think about, we have an AM or a PM class, we have to clean up.
Yeah.
Do we always have to? Certainly. Sometimes, of course, we do. But if you have an opportunity to leave something up, perhaps do it and see how the other class can extend that and add to it.
Yeah. All right, we are going to fly through just a few photos of social emotional skills so that we can do our giveaways and also end on time. Of course, when they're using blocks, we're interacting, we're negotiating, and we are cooperating. This is straight from the wellness program. So having them act out situations of conflict or negotiation or cooperation is always powerful. Peer tutoring. We also read that children as young as 2 will non-verbally coach others about the correct pieces to use during block play. Isn't that mind-blowing? Children who aren't even fully communicating yet are making suggestions about what you should use for block play. Just wild. So you can see that here as well. And competency. The reason why I want to stay at the block center is because they feel competent. Everybody, regardless of their ability, has success at the block play area. So usually them staying there for an extended period of time only makes us feel uncomfortable because of our preconceived notions as a teacher about what they're supposed to be doing, when in reality, it is fully okay if you have those children that want to be at the block play area for an extended period of time. If you as a teacher are adding those materials, linking it to a learning outcome, you should not feel any guilt in providing that opportunity to them throughout the day. Kaylee, this all looks nice, but we can't send these block creations home. I feel like we touched on this a little bit.
We absolutely did. This is just a sample of something that could be communicated home to families too. So sending an email, documenting that visually and celebrating the child, you're honoring what they've built. You're providing opportunities to increase that dialogue between parent and child. And then they can come back the next day, see the picture that they have created, and start all over again.
So great. So you guys can take a look at that, as well as some of the literature that we've linked here for you.
Again, all of those are linked to where you can purchase them, or YouTube links as well, but great pieces to put into your block play area.
I've just a few more samples for you about things that you can incorporate into your classroom. Some videos for you to take a look at. This YouTube page actually had a whole bunch that was linked from
Fantastic.
NACY, and NACY is one of our favorite resources to find these developmentally appropriate items. So if you're super interested in 3-minute videos of watching kids with block play, this is for you. Now, we have a task for you. Before we give anything away or let anybody go, we would like to have everybody make a 6-word story. This is linked. Is it linked? I'll make sure it's linked before it goes on. This is one of the SOS strategies from Discovery Education. And these strategies can be used in your classroom with a variety of grades, but we are going to use it with you today. So everybody is going to make a 6-word summary story that summarizes the most important information about this photo that you see. So you're going to take a look at this photo, and in 6 words, we want you to tell us something about your aha moment from the presentation, something that confirmed the information received, something that surprised you about the information, something that you want to try. I mean, what was the first thing Kaylee and I saw when we looked at this photo? Minion, Minion. You don't have to include Minion, but 6 words summarizing the important information that you just learned about block play. If you can make it, then congratulations.
Yeah.
You could send just 6 words that don't have to make sense in a sentence.
It's the end of the day. We know that your brains are
6
fried.
words.
It's totally fine. Pick whatever words come to mind when you think of this session today and this photo.
So we're going to ask you to think about that, throw it in the chat. We are going to stop recording this presentation. We're going to thank everybody for coming, and we are going to let you know about these references as well. So I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
We're going to leave it at there. So we are going to stop recording and thank everybody for coming today. Bye.